Marq Evans, thank you so much for joining me today. I
Yeah, thanks for having me.
appreciate it. We are here to talk about your amazing documentary, The Glamour and the Squalor. Tell us a little bit about it before I get all emotional about it.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear what you think. So the Glamour and the Squalor is centered on Marco Collins, who was a radio DJ, most known for being in the 90s and breaking a lot of bands that are still very instrumental today, like the whole grunge scene, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, a little bit later, bands like Weezer and artists like Beck, and then even some of the electronic music that was very influential, like Daft Punk and The Prodigy and the Chemical Brothers. He kind of brought that to mainstream US audiences. So it's his story and kind of his rise and fall and path to reinvention in this new world where, in the past he was talking to 3 million people a night on his show on the radio, which radio was the thing. And then trying to remain relevant in the music industry that's changed so much during his time, and doing it while he's fighting addiction and all kinds of things in his personal life as well too. So that's the story.
Maybe it hits me more than some of the younger kids because of the fact that I remember recording songs off the radio.
Yeah.
And I remember bands like that and having to go to Tower Records and pick up the CD after I heard the signal on the radio, making mixtapes and having to wait for the right moment. But as far as your documentary, I was just so impressed with the roller coaster of emotions that you're able to convey in his life. How was that, putting that documentary together for you, as far as all of the highs and the lows in his life and everything in between?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it starts with him being open to go there, and that was something I think early on we had an outline, and I'd presented that to him, and he did decide, like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all the way, because if not, then you're not making a movie that's going to be seen by anybody, and then what's the point? You're just wasting everybody's time. And then even so, he felt like that he was going all the way, giving everything he had, but we kind of realized, like, we need 5% more, just open up a little bit more. And to his credit, he did that by the end. So I think it starts with that, like him, willing to share the highs and the lows. And then it all really comes together in the editing. I was so fortunate to work with an editor, Jeff Gilbert, who taught me so much about storytelling, documentary storytelling. He is one of the best editors in the world. Recently, he did a movie called Boys State that's on Apple. It's very successful. He did one called The Overnighters. Again, just to me, those are like master classes in documentary storytelling. And those were different because those are verite films where they're following a story as it's happening in real time. The Glamour and the Squalor is part telling a story that happened in the past, and then part also showing what's happening now with his story. But the roller coaster, I mean, it was definitely, on purpose to edit it that way. And really, when you think about documentary editing, it's just like, it's really script writing in a way. You write a narrative script, and then you follow that. In documentary, you're writing the script and the editing process. And we also had to go back. I remember when I first started working with Jeff on the edit, I kind of thought we were ready to start editing. Again, this was my first film, and we pieced an outline together and started making a very rough, like, radio edit, and realized pretty quickly, like, oh, there's a lot of stuff we still have to go shoot. There's a lot of holes in the story. We identified what the story was going to be, and I realized, oh, I got to go back and do more interviews. So that was kind of an interesting learning experience too, about how we were kind of in the editing process, but also still in production for a lot of the time. I mean, there was interviews that we got, one with a couple of the musicians, but also with Marco very late in the process, but we just realized that we needed to get a little bit more.
And how was that for you? Because you have quite a list of names. You have quite the footage from his life. Was that challenging? Were people open for it? How was that process?
Yeah, I mean, there was some interviews that we wanted to get that we just couldn't quite get. Like, we were chasing Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam forever, and it kind of seemed like we'd get it, but then ultimately we just had to kind of move on and finish the film and put it out. But for the most part, people were open to it. The challenge is, when you're trying to interview celebrities, is that they've got gatekeepers, they've got managers and stuff that don't, like, those aren't the people that are generally going to let you through. So we kind of had to figure out, like, side ways to get to these people. And then once they heard about it, for the most part, people wanted to do it. They were willing, because I think that they wanted to, give thanks. If it's a musician, they wanted to give thanks to Marco for helping their career. But again, the gatekeepers are just like, no, no, no. But we were able to find a lot of these people. And that was awesome, because, I'm interviewing musicians that I grew up loving and listening to. So that was a lot of fun. And then, and then Marco, he was always so great. He, showed up and was open to anything that we wanted to do, including going, to like his dad's house, who, that their relationship is a big part of the film. So it was just, the process, it was a long process. It took almost 5 years to make the film. But a lot of that is just, independent filmmaking and financing and, all that stuff.
Yeah. So what is your biggest takeaway from spending all that time with Marco?
The biggest thing is just like passion, like how, seeing his passion for music and trying to apply that. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I love making documentary films, and just trying to, the enthusiasm and the passion that I saw him put into his love of music and music discovery. And it's interesting because he's known for what he did in the early 90s, because he had this massive audience that he's introducing this new music to, and that's why he's credited for breaking all these bands. But he's still doing the same thing today. He just doesn't have as big of an audience. He doesn't have a radio station with all these listeners, but he's not like resting on, oh, I was the guy that broke all these bands. He's trying to introduce people to new music, and that's what he loves doing. So I think spending time with him is just the passion, and then the enthusiasm was my biggest takeaway. I
think for me, what I took away was, I was trying to figure out the way to convey this to you without rambling on for too long. Just the power he had with the ability to kind of hear the next sound and say that this is going to work. Even you had a story of somebody who I forget right now off the top of my head. I had it on another notepad. He's handed a demo outside.
Yeah,
plays it, and it's instant success, and it's somebody who I was like, wow, no, somebody just handed him a demo, and that's how they became relevant in the overall scheme of things. And then there was this kind of frustration and anger with the path he took in his personal life with drugs and things like that, because of his abilities. And I think it just made me appreciate more kind of, I don't know. There was a lot, and there's so many emotions listening to some of the songs, the tracks that you guys had in the background that he's credited for breaking. And I think that made for a very successful documentary. I just wanted to express that to you, that I found it very eye-opening, and it's a great story. I think many people should see and hear.
Yeah, thank you. I can follow up on a few of those things. The musician that kind of found him on the street, Sean Nelson, he's in a band called Harvey Danger, who had a massive hit. They had a nice career, but are most known for the song Flagpole Sitta. And yeah, he happened to just see Marco on the street, and he had his CDs with him, gave him the CD, and the record had been out for a little while, and it was having like critical success, but not on a commercial scale. Nobody really had heard of it outside of like little indie people that are really following it. And Marco played it, and it went to #1 and became this huge song that's still played today, all by just passing him on the street. Which pretty crazy that could happen. I don't think that could really happen today, that kind of thing.
Right. We have too many other outlets. You have YouTube, you have SoundCloud, you have so many other places where people are putting their media. I think I really appreciated kind of the era that I was able to grow up in, where I can listen to the radio for something new, and it was cool. It was great. I know
that was the only place where you could really hear it. It was the radio and MTV, or it was kind of all we had.
yeah, that's true. So what do you, for you personally, what was it like when you were growing up and you found that song that you loved on the radio for the first time?
Yeah, similar to what you were talking about, I would time it. I would tape it, so then I'd have it. I made mixtapes for friends all the time. And I remember one story that came to mind. There was a band, Sunny Day Real Estate, that I loved. And it was, I lived like 4 hours from Seattle, which is where Marco was on the air. And so this radio station, I knew of it, but I didn't have it in my hometown. But if I'd go to Seattle when I was, like 14 years old with my family, let's say we'd go over for like a Seattle Mariners game, I would always listen to that station because it was kind of a famous station, but I didn't have it. And there was this band, Sunny Day Real Estate, and I could only hear this music on that station. And then finally, I figured out I didn't know who they were until like the fourth time I heard the song. And then finally, I think it must have been Marco said it. Sunny Day Real Estate, the song is 7. And then I went out and bought the CD right away. But that's how hard it was, like to, at the time. So I think maybe we appreciated it, maybe not more, but differently. It was a different appreciation because you had to like work for the music back then.
Yeah, you did. And once you found it, it's quite treasured, right? So I want to ask you, what do you feel is the power of music on people, and what do you feel Marco really did for us in the 90s overall? I know that we're going to get to it in the documentary, but just in your own words.
Yeah, I mean, music has always been a huge part of my life, and something as long as I can remember, certain songs can, get me through a tough time, or certain songs that I, from back in the day that I listen to now can take me right back to a certain moment. So, I mean, if you're a fan of music, like so many of us are, it's so important in so many different ways. And, this music that he helped bring to the world kind of changed the world too. I mean, like when Nirvana came on the scene, that, rock music especially was very, it was like this overly masculine, homophobic in a lot of ways. And then Nirvana comes out and they were still this heavy band, but they had these like pop hooks and were very vocal about, if you're homophobic, don't buy our music, don't come to our shows, we don't want you. And one, I think that was really interesting as it relates to Marco, because I think that really helped him feel more comfortable with his own identity and who he was. But I just think that like that music becoming the biggest music in the world really helped change the world. And, we still have a long ways to go. That was 30 years ago now. 30 years ago from like Nirvana, Nevermind coming out. But I think also the world has come a long way since then. And, music plays no small part in that. I mean, it definitely makes an impact. And then another, song that's highlighted in the film is Same Love by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. And I think, that was several years ago now, but it helped do the same thing.
So it's funny you mentioned that it was 30 years ago. I kind of started thinking about that too. I did not want to think about the fact that how long ago that was. But yeah, it definitely, what I wanted to ask you, and you mentioned a little bit, how was it uncomfortable for him to talk about his personal life, especially because, that's a time that you were saying that, homophobia was still a really big thing, wasn't as accepting as we see nowadays. Was that easy for him to talk about? Did that take maybe a little bit of time? And
yeah, it definitely wasn't easy for him. He decided if he's going to do this, he's going to go all in, but saying you're going to go all in and then actually doing it and being that vulnerable, that's tough. It's a different thing. He did there was an article that came out, like a feature article about him that came out like right before I started researching. It was kind of great timing. The fact that this article came out kind of like, what's Marco Collins doing now? And it went over his whole career. And that's something that I found early in my research. And I was so glad that I found it. And that's when I realized that I could make a movie about this. But the fact that he did that article, which he talked about being gay for the first time publicly, was that article. And then, so it was good, I think, that he went through that process. But he talked about how, like, after that article came out, he stayed in bed for like 2 or 3 days. Like, he just didn't want to face anybody. He was so scared. But I think that helped him be a little bit more open with the movie, because he saw the response and everybody was so supportive of him. And but also movies, he knew that a movie was going to be seen by a lot more people than, an article would. So there was still something kind of that held him back a little bit, that I think, but ultimately he came around. And, towards the very end of the process of making the movie, we just asked him, we were like, you've given us so much, but there's maybe like 5% more. There's this one little layer, I think, that if you could just strip that off, it would make it a much more powerful and emotional movie. And to his credit, he went there. And I think that kind of made the difference in taking the movie to another emotional level.
And there's one moment in particular that I really love. I'm not going to give away exactly what it is. Hopefully I can convey to you telepathic what I'm talking about, between his dad and him, about something he needed in his life. And the way that his father expressed it to him meant the world to him. And I thought that was great.
I think that Marco, hearing that from his dad, really changed his life. And, it's unfortunate that he couldn't have heard that from his dad earlier. I think he was chasing his dad's acceptance for, decades, but finally being able to hear this from his dad, and especially before his dad passed away, who, he passed away not long after the movie came, that we filmed with him. Was really important, and I think that helped Marco kind of just move on from some past trauma with his relationship with his dad growing up. So yeah, that's, to me, that's the most like the kind of the emotional heartbeat of the film is their relationship.
Absolutely. So by the time you guys are done with production and filming, do you feel like maybe there was a weight that was lifted off of his shoulders? Maybe talking with you guys, it kind of made him feel a little bit better? Or
I don't know how much about the process, but certainly after it came out and he got to see it with audiences. We had an amazing premiere at the Seattle International Film Festival, and just a packed house audience that had rock stars in attendance, and that was really cool. And then we toured the film at festivals, and he was a part of a lot of those screenings. So I think that really was a weight off, that like, okay, I told my story, I did all this, and now people are seeing it. What are they going to say? And just seeing how supportive people were, and I think he felt like it was worthwhile to do it, and that it helped him, and I think he was hoping that it would help others as well too, and I know it has, because we hear from people that it helped them through whatever. So that's, I think, been the best feeling about it.
Absolutely. It's a really inspiring story, just to also go after what you love. Because I know there was a couple of laws in there where he was like selling real estate and loans and doing things like that.
I know, it's so funny to think about it. That's just not him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was so out of character. It was strange. I want to wrap this up. I just want to ask you, we talked a lot about it already, but just to put it in a statement, what do you hope audiences take away from your film?
I think first and foremost, it's hopefully somebody, if they can see themselves in Marco, it's an inspiring story to overcome, adversity from way back from when he was young and he was struggling, getting bullied at school and everything, and struggling to find himself. Hopefully it's inspiring for, he really flourished when he could start being himself, where he felt like he could, he kind of found his tribe and he felt like he could be himself. So just encouraging people to be themselves, and they have so much to offer. And then also, to your point earlier, just finding your passion. That was always so inspiring to just spend time around him and seeing his excitement when he would, like, you could see him, like he'd be listening to new music on his laptop and he'd find something that he loved, and just how excited he got. And you can build a career and life around what you love to do. So those would probably be my two biggest takeaways.
Marq, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I appreciate the work you did on this documentary, because it's really good, and I do hope everybody gets to see it, and you can. It's available now on all major streaming platforms, including Amazon Prime and all the rest that I'm not going to name at the moment. It'll be down below on the description. Thanks again, Marq, and we hope to see you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care.